What's going on, everybody? This is the SI Sooners podcast, episode 121 on this wonderful Wednesday, April the 27th. Josh Callaway in Oklahoma City, Ryan Chapman in Norman, John Hoover in Tulsa. Gentlemen, how are we doing? We're making it through. This is the last show of April, believe it or not. We're shifting the calendar to May this weekend, which is kind of insane.
I'm so excited for summer to get here. You guys are going to miss me next week. But no, I'm at the Sports Animal Studios today, so a little bit different setting, a little bit different lighting, a little bit different sound, different vibe. I've been talking for the past 2 hours, so hope my throat is good to go.
Yeah, you say excitement. I went into a panic when I looked at my calendar and was like, wait, we've got NFL draft this weekend. And then I was like, oh, spring football's done. No, Ryan's got Bedlam softball the next weekend, Big 12 tournament the next weekend, which we've got like family graduation folded into that. Then we're into softball postseason. I just remember not sleeping through the entire bit of that. So juiced up, but I was like, wait, I don't think I was mentally ready for that.
Yeah, not to mention several coaches' caravan stops along the way. Who will be at the one in Tulsa tomorrow? We'll talk about that a little bit here shortly. But then, yeah, I mean, Amarillo's in there. I think Ryan's going to go to that one. I'm going to go to Dallas. We got Duncan, OKC. Who's going to go to Wichita? It rolls on. There's always stuff. So May will be a fun month as the last infinite number have been. It'll be busy and it'll be good stuff all month long on all Sooners. So obviously, to kind of start, I figured, we just had the show on Sunday, which was our spring game, wrap-up show. And if you didn't catch that, I recommend you go back, get our full expounded thoughts on the spring game, just the day after it commenced. But, just to kind of put a bow on it, now that we've had some time to peel away from it a little bit, it's been a couple days now, a few days since the game. Was there anything else that, any kind of cleanup here before we kind of put a bow on the spring and turn ahead to, other things? Was there any last kind of cleanup, any last thoughts on the spring game, the spring in general for Brent Venables here in this team?
Yeah. First things first, Bally Sports, Oklahoma, if you're listening, I'm going to need a rebroadcast on that bad boy because the storms that night that hit Tulsa right about the time you were rebroadcasting the broadcast at 10:30 p.m., the storms knocked out my dish. I got about a third of the game, about a third, maybe half of the action. So I don't have a proper assessment. It was a lot of digitizing and max headroom type stuff, guys talking, and nothing was working. So I was not able to go back and rewatch and formulate any stronger opinions one way or the other. But the story that sticks out to me was the story that I wrote for this morning at All Sooners, and that is the 250 almost said 250 offensive linemen. That would have been something. 250 lettermen coming back, and just wanted to be a part of it. Part of that was Baker. A big part of that was Brent. I just think a big part of it was feeling welcome in the program again. That hasn't necessarily happened or taken place with a lot of lettermen, a lot of alumni. Haven't really been made to feel welcome, part of the program. You laid this foundation kind of thing. So just having all those guys back and so many guys who are currently playing in the NFL or just recently left the NFL and they're raising young families, they all came back to be a part of something again, something bigger. And you could just see the smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
It was special. It was special. I know we talk about 75,360 and upwards of 100 recruits and all that, and that's where the future of the program lies. But just to have that many guys come back who were a big part of the past of this program, I think is really special. And I think Brent Venables deserves a lot of credit for being able to do that, to pull that off so seamlessly.
Yeah, I think all of it is kind of, yes, there was, like you talk about the fan base. Yes, there's a lot of, hey, we want to show that Oklahoma's still strong. Same from the players, but I'm just not sure if, like, let's throw out random name that was thrown out in the coaching carousel, not that it was actually considered. But, like, if Matt Rule, for instance, in a weird separate timeline was the head coach at Oklahoma, like, okay, the fans are mad, but are there 75,000 fans there? Hey, the players want to come back and the doors are opening again, but are there over 250 players? I think it kind of speaks to how Brent Venables, at least on paper right now, seems to be the right guy for this program and the time that it's in, at the crossroads of they're about to enter the SEC. They've just been left by a coach when that hasn't happened since decades on. I think it just kind of speaks to Brent Venables' preparation, and when he talked about like wanting to have the right fit when he finally did take a head coaching job, makes all the sense in the world why he's the right guy for right now for this program.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, from an outside perspective, I don't really know how the spring could have gone much better for Oklahoma in terms of landing on their feet. You know, we talked about it in the winter with the recruiting aspect, but just the fan base is revitalized, and I think all things considered, I mean, especially when that all happened and the recruits started decommitting when Lincoln first left, it was like, oh man, like it might really go in the tank here, and again, they haven't played a game yet, but they've seemingly avoided that in grand fashion. A lot of OU fans think that it's going to be even better than it was. So we'll see how it plays out, but I don't know how Oklahoma could have had the last 5 months, however long it's been since Brent got hired, go much better. I don't know what else you could hope for. Good stuff. That spring game was a spectacle. I just sit back and think about it, randomly, like God, just the volume of former guys that were there. It was crazy. It was a spectacle. I don't know if we'll ever see anything quite like that again. It reminded me of almost like the NBA's like 75th anniversary thing this year at the All-Star game with all the guys there. Like, it just was a cool thing. I don't know if that'll ever happen quite like that again. So that was a cool thing, and certainly a very productive spring for Oklahoma, no doubt about that. Now, as we shift into the next portion of the calendar, into the back end of literal spring, I'll just bring balls behind you, and we get into summer. Transfer portal deadline is coming up. I believe it's Sunday, right? May 1st.
Yep.
That's your deadline to transfer and still be eligible for next season. Obviously, with now spring being over, you would imagine there's a lot of guys. It's going to be kind of a mad dash to kind of make your decisions, because this is it. You're locked into what you are deciding for the next year if you don't decide this week, or if you transfer, you wouldn't be eligible. So the first domino to fall for Oklahoma, obviously Cody Jackson comes down. Receiver, was just a redshirt freshman. He just played 2 games last year as a true freshman. I think we all liked him. We all thought he had upside, but I'm just assuming here he wants a bigger role now than he maybe would have had this season. What is some reaction from you guys to Cody Jackson hitting the portal? I mean, I didn't totally expect this. I don't think it's crazy, the position, the receiver room, because it is kind of crowded. I just don't know if this was the guy I would have circled, but there you go. Cody Jackson's in the portal.
Yeah, I would have thought, guys, that Cody Jackson was a guy who was a little bit of a long-timer here. He was going to be here for 4 years, and he was going to be one of those guys that put up good career numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewing him when he was in high school, before he got here, talking to him a couple of times, I guess, on the Zoom. You don't really get a good feel for a guy on the Zoom, obviously, but he just struck me as, a 4-star coming in behind CeeDee Lamb from Richmond, Texas, CeeDee's high school. He wanted to be the next CeeDee Lamb. I think we saw, he got into a couple games last year, dealt with some injury situations, but for the most part, this spring, you heard good things about him. And it seemed like he was maybe making headway, but when you look around that receiver room and then you see, a guy like Jaden Gibson, for instance, goes for a 95-yard touchdown in the spring game, or, pops a big one, caught 3 passes for over 100 yards. And you see other guys getting run in the spring game. I guess it kind of makes sense. Cody caught, was it 1 or 2 passes in the spring game? I just expected that he would be here for a while. Yeah.
I think it was 3 passes.
3 passes. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's really a shock that someone hit the portal, and it would have been impossible for me to like circle a single guy, but it just comes in. Jeff Levy likes different stuff out of his wide receivers, so I could kind of see if you see the writing on the wall and you're not like a 6'5", 6'2", 6'3" kind of guy, and you want to go, okay, you tried it for the spring, maybe it's not for you, go ahead and hit the portal. I think that makes sense. It just means to me that Oklahoma already needed a wide receiver in the transfer portal, probably, just for depth, and now they definitely need one. So something to look out for, and just keep in mind, like, players have to be in the portal by May 1st. They don't have to be decided where they're going by May 1st. So OU fans that are watching it, if there's not a huge announcement on Twitter by like Saturday of all these guys coming in, don't worry. That's just a paperwork has to be submitted and in the portal by May 1 to maintain eligibility. And then you've got a little while to kind of figure that out. So just be looking at your roster for Sunday. And then after that, you can kind of look around. So using the portal and start doing your dream scenarios.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what other guys hop in. Obviously it's just been Cody Jackson so far as we record this right now, 12:30 on Wednesday. But we'll see if anybody else follows suit in that regard. And yeah, like I don't know where he was going to fit into the hierarchy this year, but obviously, like it was just he only played 2 games. He's a redshirt freshman. I mean, he's very early in the going here, so we'll see where he ends up and what kind of an impact he can have right away, wherever that is. So we'll find out. But like I said, the deadline is coming up. So like Ryan said, you don't have to obviously add the guys this week. But what if you're going to get in the portal, you have to get in there by this week. But what are some guys that Oklahoma definitely is going to need? We don't know totally until obviously the rest of the guys enter the portal. We talked about on Sunday's show the need for a quarterback, which Brent Venables was very open about that. Just with that deadline approaching, is there any positions that, and again, we talked about quarterback already, but you can bring it back up if you want. Is there any positions that are obvious they need to add this? Like if they can only add one, what has got to be an objective in your mind this offseason for Oklahoma? They really need at least one contributing X.
Quarterback, like you said, obviously. What about defensive line? What about defensive tackle? I think they're going to be really good at defensive end. You pick up a Jeffrey Johnson from Tulane in the portal previously. Is there someone in the portal? I think they're going to keep their eyes open for all options. But is there someone in the portal at that position who can be a game changer? Not just a guy who's played somewhere, not just a guy who's got a little experience, because they got plenty of that. They need somebody who can come in and be a game changer at that position for this team to really, really reach its peak this year. I think they're set at defensive back. I think they're happy with the guys they've got. I think they're happy with the guys they've got at receiver. Running back might be a little thin. We saw Marcus Major sitting out the other day, and the running back position fell to some walk-ons and true freshmen. So if there's an injury situation happen at the running back position, all of a sudden you get real thin real fast. That might be something as well.
This may be the hardest thing to get in the portal, but they've got to find a guard. They've got to find a backup guard for me. We talked to Bill Bedenbaugh, and he said beforehand he's got 4 guys that he feels comfortable rolling out with on the interior of the offensive line right now. Just based off what we kind of saw, I think that would be a healthy Andrew Rame, Rob Conjul. That's 2 centers. And then McCabe Tower over at the left guard, Chris Murray over at the right guard. Like I think they need somebody else. To expect that unit is going to go through the entire year and none of those guys are going to miss even like a half. If you're telling me like right now, if Chris Murray gets put into concussion protocol at halftime of OU Texas and he's able to come back the next week, but you're going to have to play a whole second half with any one of those guys back up the right guard, like that's going to be a disaster. So I know that Bill Bedenbaugh's, they've got the summer, they've got fall camp to come along, but they've got to go out and somehow, some way add some sort of depth on the interior of that offensive line just because it's just not there right now. And I'd hate to move either one of those tackles over at Guyton and Bird, because if either one of Harrison or Wanya Morris have an incredible year, those guys are probably going to go to the draft. So I'd like to be able to keep those guys there, continue to develop all year long, and maybe have a line of succession.
What about these names for you, Ryan? Marcus Alexander is a guy that's been around. He's a redshirt junior. Nate Anderson is a guy that's been around. He's a redshirt sophomore. And Darrell Simpson is a guy that's been around. He is now a redshirt senior. I know you want your guys to play early in their careers and you want them to be able to show early that you can contribute. But if you've got experienced guys on your roster who you've been waiting to come along, come along, you've been waiting for them to get in there. There's 3 or 4 guys on this roster, on this offensive line, who Bill Bedenbaugh knows very well. They've been around. They've just been waiting for their turn. I mean, it's probably more of a stopgap situation, injury-wise and depth-wise. You'd rather have somebody come in and be a star, but at the same time, I think they've got the bodies. Those bodies don't have any experience.
Yeah, my only concern is that when we asked Bill Bedenbaugh, he said he only has 4 guys he thinks are ready, and all those guys have been in the program for a little bit. It's not like it's, hey, he's a redshirt freshman. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he had 1 year to just work on his body and come along. And again, you're not looking for a starter. You just need that depth because it's a lot of pace. It's a ton of snaps. Because keep in mind, with the tempo, more snaps. We've talked about this for receivers. We've talked about this, more opportunity for receivers, more opportunity for running backs. The darker side of that is that's more snaps, which is more opportunities for a guy to just happen to get rolled up on in a pile. You know what I mean? So I just am worried that they're razor thin right now. And again, those guys could have a huge summer and come along. Bill Bedenbaugh was open to that. But I'm just going off what he told us right now is that he's only got 4 guys. I don't want to go through the year with 4 guys to play 3 spots.
There is one guy that I left out of my rundown, and that's Bray Walker. He's a guy that has gotten playing time in games before, shown a ton of potential both as a recruit and as a young player. Well, now he's a senior. He is a senior, guys. Bray Walker still hasn't cracked the lineup, so that may be somebody. I would think he's the first guy off of that so-called pile of options that Bill Bedenbaugh would take in and put in the game.
Absolutely. I agree with all that. I do think running back is definitely an area of concern just because Eric Gray, if they got lucky last year, we talked about this last year, like Eric Gray and Kenny Brooks are great, but there's no depth behind them. They just never got hurt. And so it never got exposed. But now you're going to this year feeling kind of similar. You have Eric Gray. Then after him is just, it's a lot of, Marcus Major just basically missed last season. Javonte Barnes is a true freshman. Gavin Sawchuk's a true freshman. Tawee Walker's a JUCO guy. You would like another experienced running back do you feel like you could lean on a little? So I think that would be a wise pickup there. And obviously, we already talked about it, but the quarterback is obvious. We talked about that on Sunday. You need something else because, to like Ryan's point, halftime vote Texas, if Dillon Gabriel gets hurt, I have no faith that one of those other guys can carry them to a big win like that. I think that could Ralph Rucker or Evers or maybe get you the rest of the way through a Kansas or something, sure. But if it happens in a big game, I don't know. So we'll see how that shakes out. Because it should be an interesting off season for Oklahoma in the portal, and All Sooners is definitely the place to be keeping up with all that. It's going to be active, and we'll see if any other guys hop in the portal. There might be a need that we don't even know they need yet, because there might be somebody who gets in the transfer portal this week. Cody Jackson, the first one to fall on that front. Kind of the finishing touches on that transfer portal conversations. You guys see the Baylor situation. So Dave Aranda, who was a guy kind of floated around for the OU coaching job to continue that, but he named Blake Shapen the starting quarterback, which essentially was giving Gary Bohannon the go-ahead to leave. Very refreshing, honestly. A move from Aranda that allowed Bohannon the chance to go find a new place. And he did it. He entered the portal today. This is not something you see coaches do ever, because coaches want to string guys along for depth. So this was surprising to me, and not to just make everything a Lincoln Riley conversation, but this is something that obviously we're very familiar with because we had a lot of fake quarterback battles at Oklahoma. Maybe for this reason, wanting to keep Austin Kendall around, wanting to keep Tanner Mordecai around, things like that. And now you see Baylor do this. Just quick reaction to that. It was very interesting. And now Bohannon's going to leave and Shapen's the guy in Waco.
Yeah, you need quarterback depth. If you have one quarterback and nobody behind him, that's a red flag. Gary Bohannon, this is surprising to me that he was not named the starter. Blake Shapen, I guess, had the better spring. Guys, we saw Gary Bohannon more than once come off the bench and be just a gamer and win them a Big 12 championship. He's not a great quarterback by any means, but he's a gamer. He's a football player, a better football player than he is a quarterback, I think. Dude's a Big 12 champ. And you're right, Josh, it's a great service to him, the opposite of what would be a disservice. It's a great service to him to say, we're naming him the starter so you can have time to do whatever you want to do. If you want to stay, we'd love to have you. You're going to be a great backup, and we believe you can win games for us. But if you're not, we're going to do this before May 1st so you can jump in the transfer portal and go play somewhere else right now. It's a big time move by Dave Aranda, but ultimately, yeah, it could hurt the program.
Yeah, like it's a roll of the dice, like you said, because you're increasing the ceiling of the team from what we saw like in the first half against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game out of Chapin. But you could also, if again, Chapin is put into concussion protocol and only misses a half, now all of a sudden you're like, to Hoove's point, you were confident in the guy coming in behind him to roll out there. But I think it should be commended as a great move by Aranda, just a great personal move to give Bohannon that option, especially someone who carried the water for the Bears in the regular season and then just unfortunately had the hammy pop up at the end of the year, so he didn't have a chance to finish the job as far as winning the Big 12. So I think it's a hats off to Aranda move, and I think it kind of shows why he'll continue to resonate with recruits when he has that defense that he has, plus moves like this. And he seems to just be an overall thoughtful guy, even if he is a bit robotic at times. I think that he'll continue to resonate long past Baylor, whatever the next iteration of the Big 12 ends up looking like.
Yeah, I do think that Chapin is the right move as starting quarterback. I think he gives you more potential. Like Ryan said, the ceiling is higher there. And then I give Aranda a lot of credit. It's very easy to string this as a competition into August, and then you have Bohannon as your backup all year, even though it's not a real competition. And he did right by him, and I think that's going to help get more players down the road in recruiting and things like that. Like knowing he will keep your best interest. It's not going to be just all about whatever helps him and the team win all the time. He'll look for individual, he'll help you out. So I think that was a cool move, and especially we'll see where Bohannon winds up. I don't know. I imagine it'll be at least a decent market for him. But obviously he's looking for a starting gig. Otherwise he would have just stayed at Baylor if he was okay being a backup. So we'll see where that winds up. Otherwise, I'd say Oklahoma, get on that. That could be your backup in Norman, but I'm assuming that's not something he's interested in, given the whole reason he's entering the portal. So we'll see how that shakes out, but interesting stuff there.
What if he thinks he's better than Dillon Gabriel?
Go for it.
I mean, that's how a quarterback has to think. I'm better than that dude. I can beat him out. I can be the next great Oklahoma quarterback. It's not going to happen. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's not. But yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where he winds up. Maybe outside the Power 5. Who knows? It's been a while. It's going to take, I think, week 1, maybe even to like week 2 or 3 before I realize where everybody is. It's going to be like, oh, yeah, he's the quarterback over there now. There was so much movement this offseason. It's hard to keep up with it all, honestly. So we'll see how that shakes out. Been a wild. Transfer portal is insane. It is college football free agency now, which is it makes it entertaining in the offseason, but it's also hectic. And
college basketball too.
Absolutely.
Bill Self needs to get his collective on Bohannon to Lawrence.
That's right.
The Adidas collective has proven to be powerful.
Bohannon in the
quarterback away.
One quarterback away. To wrap up this first segment here before we get into some other stuff, Hoove, you had the story this morning, or it posted just a little bit before we started recording. This is insane. I read your story. I hadn't seen anything about it. I'll let you kind of run point on it, but basically, Oklahoma former running back Marcus Dupree is a hero. Talk about it, Hoove.
Hero to millions, hero to Sooner Nation. Well, he's also a hero to a motorist who, from Marcus's description, I talked to him this morning, actually during my radio show here at the Sports Animal. It sounded like she was driving a little crazy and kind of started peeling her. She passed him on the right, jumped into the left lane, got cut off by a truck. Next thing you know, her vehicle spun around, flipped, rolled over on its side. He pulls over, assists in dragging her out of the vehicle.
It's nuts.
He said that she seemed okay. She was alert. Paramedics came, firefighters came and put her in an ambulance and took her away. But efforting more details on that right now. But so far, if you want more, it's allsooners.com. It's the lead story right now. I talked to Marcus this morning, and he gave me as many details as he could remember. He said, I don't feel like a hero. just doing what people are supposed to do, which is stop to help an injured motorist. He said people were just driving around him on the highway, like, oh look, there's a car flipped over, driving around. So we got to do better as an Oklahoma standard, do we not? So shout out Marcus. Kudos to him. Very rare you see a celebrity, not very rare, but it's not all the time you see a celebrity stop and render assistance like that, because you've got the fame factor and the wealth factor and the lawsuit factor, and all kinds of things could go wrong. So shout out Marcus, man. Good job.
Yeah, just wild stuff. AllSooners.com. Huge, great recap by Hoove there.
Yeah, 100%. And to shout out Sooner Gridiron with the tweet of save a woman's life and then horns down pick to celebrate, which is pretty funny. With all the firefighters.
Right. Him and 20 firefighters doing this.
Yeah, we saved somebody. That's awesome. That's great. That's so on brand. But good stuff there. So really cool story. Like who said, allstars.com. Go check out good details. Who obviously talked to Marcus, so you get some firsthand account there from him. So good stuff. Allstars.com. All right, let's take a timeout here. We'll come back. Some other stuff to get to. Bob Stoops said some stuff that made some waves again, and we'll talk. We didn't talk about it on Sunday at all. We'll talk about the One Oklahoma NIL initiative. We'll try and parse through everything going on with that. We'll talk about that a little bit next on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Kerry with Trade Pros here. We've got a brand new service program coming out this year. It's the new All-Star Service Program. It's only $25 a month. The great thing about it is it's going to save you guys a ton of money throughout the year. Furnace and air conditioning repairs can be very expensive. If you guys need a service call and you're signed up with us, you're not going to have to pay that service charge. The repair is under $500. Trade Pros is going to take care of that as well. Anything over that, you guys are just going to be responsible for 25% of that. Go give us a like on Facebook. Check us out at tradeprosokc.com or give us a call at 405-639-9991.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at all_Sooners. Ryan's at Radios Ryan. Who's at John E. Hoover. I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. All right, segment 2 of the SI Sooners podcast. NFL Draft is this week. Ryan mentioned it earlier. It really feels like it's snuck up. I don't know if that's the feel of the general population. But just between the spring and even just as a sports fan, even removing myself from OU, just with NBA playoffs and everything else going on, it's like, oh, that's this week. Like, it really kind of snuck up out of nowhere. So that's Thursday night is the first round. We don't expect anybody from Oklahoma to go in the first round. There's a chance, I guess, that some guys could sneak in the back end. But what are some things that we're watching for? Obviously, all listeners will have tons of coverage from the draft over the next few days, where everybody winds up. There's lots of guys hoping to get their name called from Oklahoma this week. But just some storylines you guys are watching, things you're looking for this week from the draft in Vegas.
The NFL confuses me, guys. How do you not want to draft Gabe Burkich with your first round pick? It's a slam dunk. You need guys putting points on the board, kicking, parallel parking that thing through the uprights at every opportunity. Maybe not.
Pre-burrito kick, he's a first rounder. Post-burrito kick, I don't know.
I was about to say GMs have to know the Tex-Mex cuisine scene in their city before drafting Burkich. He needs to go to the north. Put him in a dome in the north.
Yeah, maybe Buffalo.
Yeah, he's a no-go on like Texans. Just get him out of there.
Definitely not. So I think there are a couple of names that we would keep on the radar for first round, and it's Perion Winfrey and maybe Nick Bonito. Those are the two highest regarded, I guess, guys. And I've seen some mock drafts and some projections where Perion would go in the 30s at the end of the first round, because he's a guy that grades out as like the number 3 or number 4 defensive tackle in this draft. So if there's a run on D tackles, or if one particular team, GM, scout, whatever it is, likes him more than they like somebody else at another position, I could see where Perion could sneak into the first round. But I think that's pretty much it. Guys, for the second year in a row, I think the Big 12 is going to go over in the first round. Breece Hall is the highest rated prospect, generally speaking. I think the consensus is that he's the best the Big 12 has to offer. And most projections, again, have him in the mid to high 30s in terms of where he ranks in being picked. So that's something that's I think continues to be concerning for this conference is another lack of a first rounder. Just initial thoughts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting day 3 probably to just kind of see the fit for some of these guys like an Isaiah Thomas, a Brian Asamoah. Does Mike Woods get drafted? All that stuff. But from the OU perspective, frankly, the most interesting thing happens on Thursday night, and it has nothing to do with any of this current OU draft class. It'll be a lot easier. The picture will be clearer on what the next move for Baker Mayfield may be after Thursday. When you look Carolina at 6, the Seahawks at 9, if neither one of those franchises take a swing on a Malik Willis or whoever they think is the highest rated quarterback, if Pittsburgh doesn't trade up to kind of come in and look for anyone like that leaves some options open. If there have been some absolutely crazy rumors. I don't expect this to happen at all. I think it's just that, a crazy rumor. But like if Carolina takes a wild swing on a Pickett, if the Seahawks take Willis at 9, I think you may be in kind of a head-scratching spot as far as where Baker Mayfield could go to start football games next year. So that's my biggest storyline I'm interested in on Thursday night. That is, what does the quarterback situation look like so that we can start actually taking a look and saying, okay, these teams didn't take hacks at quarterbacks. They could be a landing spot for a Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Obviously a lot of the focus is on the guys who are going to get selected, but how does this week affect Baker? I think is going to be on a lot of OU fans' minds. Certainly, especially Panthers and Seahawks, like you said, are two of the teams that seem to be the most obvious possibilities, for Baker. So we'll see how that shakes out this week and just how many guys can get drafted total. We talked about it at the time, back a couple months ago. Oklahoma had the second most guys invited to the combine. Now, I don't know if they're all going to get taken, but if they do, if a good chunk of those guys get taken, they have a chance to be one of the highest number of draftees for a school. They have a chance at that, this year. So we'll see how that shakes out. And it's always exciting to see these guys get to the next level. Pretty much all of them, I don't know, all of them might be a little strong, but a lot of them were at the spring game just last weekend. I know Perrion was there, and I saw many of the guys. So we'll see where they wind up and where they're playing football next season, which is pretty cool to get to see these guys after watching them in college get to that next level, start something new.
And one last thing too, that this is the last year it matters, and I know this is dirty and feels weird. But if any Clemson defenders go in the first 2 rounds, that's not a bad thing for Oklahoma. This staff will still be able to recruit off that next year as, hey, the OU guys, they might not have been a first rounder, but this was the people we were coaching. We're now doing that at Oklahoma. For a year, it's this weird gray area of still being able to recruit off their track record at Clemson. So not the worst thing in the world if you happen to see a Clemson Tiger slip into the first or second round there.
Absolutely. So that's NFL draft. First round is Thursday night, and then second, third round on Friday. Then 4 through 7 is Saturday. We'll have all the coverage for you on all Sooners throughout the week. Busy times because, who's going to be at Coach's Caravan Thursday night? That's the first round. I'll be in Norman for the OU baseball series this weekend. We'll talk about it a little bit at the end of the show, and then we have that going on. The draft, and it's a kind of a busy few days here. So all Sooners is going to be the place to keep up with all of it. Did we lose Hoove? I don't know we've lost Hoove here. Is he alive?
He gave us a warning. He was manning the phones, trying to reporting never stops. We mentioned the Marcus Dupree story.
I didn't realize he was on the phone.
No, yeah, he mentioned the Dupree story at the top. He put us on red alert of, hey, if someone gets back to him, if he can get more details, he may have to hop out. So again, there are no rules momentarily, and then the principal will be back in the office at some point.
All right, so keep it moving. If Hoove gets back in there, we'll get him back in. We'll get him back in. This is a peek behind the curtain right now. If you're watching on the YouTube, he just steps away. I didn't even see him take a phone call, but we'll get Hoove back in there. So we'll talk about we'll talk about old Bob Stoops, one of whose great friends, one of his good buddies, Mr. Bob Stoops. So obviously, I'm sure everybody has seen this by now. It's actually on Hoove's YouTube, so if you're watching the show, you can pause this and hop over and watch it and come back if you want. Now, this is nothing new. I think originally when it got first tweeted out there, it was really taken out of context and people kind of ran with it. If you watch the video in the context, because when this first got tweeted, Bob Stoops is on the house floor. You don't even know why he's there. It's just out of nowhere. Like, why is he even there? And he says Lincoln Riley didn't invent OU football. And so now it gets the big national waves. ESPN's sending out notifications about it, and Bleacher Report and all of them. If you watch the full video in the context, he's talking about what he was saying to the team in the aftermath after Lincoln left, which, if you want to go back to December, is he pretty much verbatim just said what he said at his press conference in December. So it's nothing crazy. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's nothing he hasn't already said, which doesn't stop, the national outlets just running with it like it's, brand new comments, brand new, everything. But it was still pretty funny to see Bob in that setting, kind of still doing a little mini shot at Lincoln in that context. It was kind of funny, but nothing he hasn't already said before.
Yeah, pretty much. It was the program guy speech just repurposed for, he was being honored. It was OU Day at the Oklahoma State House of Representatives. Bob Stoops being honored for stepping in and taking the reins. And yeah, I think the funniest thing was just like, hey, he was on the golf course. He was having a bad day, so it was no issue for him to hop off and go head in, stuff like that. And it's we know this is the Bob Stoops story that we know from that day of trying to step in and stabilize the program, but it's just what Bob Stoops does. And it was interesting just because I don't remember him explicitly, and everything's run together from that week, so feel free to correct me, but I don't remember him explicitly saying something like Lincoln Riley didn't invent OU football. It was kind of like he had the OU football is bigger than one person, stuff like that, the program guy stuff. This was explicit, though, and he was, recounting that tale, but it's just interesting. Maybe as we get farther and farther out, we'll get Bob Stoops to peel back the curtain a little bit more, because he's been kind of buttoned up about the Lincoln's doing best for his family, whatever. We're focused on the here and the now.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm trying to look it up real quick if he said that verbatim at the time. I thought he kind of did say Lincoln Riley didn't invent OU football. Maybe he didn't. But it was a very similar, either way, it was an extremely similar sentiment, obviously, to what he had said at the time. So nothing crazy there. But yeah, just fun. It is a funny video. So I do recommend people go watch it, because it is just funny seeing him in that context there. He went no tie, which I respect. I'm not a huge fan of ties. I usually wear them if I have to wear a jacket and the button down. I usually go ahead and throw a tie on there, because I just kind of feel weird not wearing one. But it does kind of choke you out a little bit. So I respect Bob just saying, forget the tie. He was like the only guy not wearing a tie in that video. So I appreciate that. What about you? Are you a tie guy?
Not really. And thankfully, like, our last three presidents have, if it's not a podium speech, they've kind of abandoned the tie as well, which I think is kind of given the green light for me to be like if it's a wedding, throw a tie on. If it's a graduation where I have to, I'll throw a tie on. Otherwise, I'm just like, I'm good.
Right. 100%. So shout out Bob on that front as well. Wrap up this segment before we get into some other sports. Do want to talk about, we didn't talk about on Sunday at all, and this news came out it was like Friday evening. It was right before the spring game, so it kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. This one Oklahoma thing, this Oklahoma NIL initiative, it's spearheaded by Barry Switzer, which is incredible. It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to digest. This is where I do wish Hoover was with us, because he did some great original reporting on this. So I recommend, people go, if you haven't read that already, go to allstars.com. He talked to people with One Oklahoma, got really good details about it. But I guess, Ryan, just I don't just your thoughts on it. And again, it's a lot to unpack, but it seems like this is only going to help Oklahoma in a really big way as long as it does get off the ground and has become a regular part of it. Because it was, to boil down to it, it's establishing a connection for every scholarship player to make some money and for charity work and to kind of all that good stuff. So there's a lot of positives here for OU in this.
Yeah, the opening press release was a little light on the details, but it was football, men's basketball, softball. The numbers that were thrown were 40,000 to 50,000. Every scholarship athlete is eligible. And like you said, they're partnering with community partners, so community service, things like that. It sounds like there'll be some bumps in the road initially here. If you listen to Gabe Eichard threw this out there on the Oklahoma Breakdown that him and Teddy Lehman do. Gabe, and it sounds like Dusty Dvorak. I think that's who he said. Maybe it was Teddy. I'm getting all my wires crossed. We're like going through some stuff, and Gabe was basically like, yeah, when he met with compliance, everything they told them not to do, this collective did. So like if you go on the website, seeing photos of current athletes in Oklahoma uniforms is a no-go. Seeing a photo of the stadium is a no-go. All that stuff is licensed. The One Oklahoma thing, very similar to There's Only One Oklahoma. Like, so it sounds like this, there will be a quick step back as they work through all that stuff before coming out on the other side. But look, this is a version of what you've seen A&M pop up with, what you've seen Texas pop up with. If anything, I think the press release announcement, even if it takes a while for that to actually come to fruition, having that press release announcement drop while all the recruits are getting to campus, like that's important. And that's a thing. They won't be the only ones that pop up. Oklahoma was just probably one recruiting cycle behind on some of these collectives getting up and getting rolling. So it'll be interesting to see good visual for the recruits. How long it takes to get from announcement to these players are actually signed up, making that money, stuff like that. That's what we'll have to see. But this is the way that NIL is moving toward. And until the NCAA steps in with hopefully just any competent human other than Mark Emmert to kind of have some NIL legislation, this is what's going to take to play the game.
Yeah, 100%. And it's obviously, and again, these things don't have anything to do literally with the school. Obviously, NIL is supposed to be separate from the school. They don't have any say in it. Venables and coaches and things like that, and it's a separate thing completely. But whenever Brent took over, if there was any concern with Brent, and it's been overwhelmingly a positive thing, but if there was any concern at all from OU fans with Brent, is that he may be a little not forward thinking in this area because Clemson's a little old school in this regard, and Dabo Swinney's been a big negative NIL guy. Negative players getting paid. He's like, it just keeps him up at night. He can't stand it. So it was like Brent coming in. That was an area of concern of, are you going to be backwards in this area? Because if they are, that's going to hurt you. And it doesn't sound like that's an issue. It sounds like Brent understands the way this needs to go, which is very important to see. And again, this is separate from him, but it's, and all that stuff, and not saying it's like he's running it or something, but still, just that relationship and all that is important. Oh, we have Hoove back. Hello, sir.
I'm back.
Back in the New York group. We're just wrapping up the second segment here.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. You're good. We were just wrapping up the second segment here. We're talking about the One Oklahoma initiative. I'm glad you hopped in right before, because obviously you had the great, original reporting on the story on the allsooners.com. So I'd love to get you in there. We were kind of talking about, our reactions to it and how important it is for Oklahoma to be forward thinking in this area and things like that. So just, some of your takeaways from what you know about it so far.
Yeah, it's okay. So just so we're clear, One Oklahoma, the collective, is not the University of Oklahoma.
Right, so right. We were just talking about that. Yeah,
two totally different things. OU has an arrangement with a third-party NIL facilitator, and this NIL facilitator has begun working working with, or at least communicating with, One Oklahoma. So it's like twice removed. They're doing what they can. They're facilitating. NIL opportunities for student athletes. And I'm told that they're going to start rolling out press releases this week. So-and-so athlete ABC has signed with such and such, and they're going to be doing charity work for this organization. And, athlete XYZ has signed with such and such, and they're going to be doing charity and so on and so forth. I'm told it's going to be starting this week, and I'm told it's going to be the way it was explained to me. Athletes you're going to be talking about every Saturday. So that's a good thing for OU. The question I got on Twitter was pretty immediate. How does $50,000 per OU student athlete compare with Texas A&M signing guys under the premise of $5 million for 5 stars? Obviously, it's a big one. So OU is, or I should say, One Oklahoma is putting the money toward, instead of all on one guy or one recruit or one quarterback or whatever, they're spreading it out for the entire roster. Everybody on scholarship has the opportunity to get $50,000. They don't have to sign up, and they can still do whatever other NIL deals they want to do outside. Jocelyn Allo can sign with this One Oklahoma, for instance, and still keep her, is it Fowler Auto? I can't remember, one of the auto groups there in Norman.
Mm-hmm.
She can do as many different ones as she wants and still get to do this one. So the main thing is it's about service. It's about community. It's about, helping. And that's another element of this. This is not their only avenue to continue to do good deeds and community service. They can still go on that Haiti trip. They're not going to get paid for it, but they can go on that Haiti trip or work in a soup kitchen or work in a food line or work in a homeless shelter, whatever it is, go speak to kids. And that just counts as your, regular community service. But to sign up with One Oklahoma, that gets you money in your pocket. So there's a lot of good things about this. And I could understand where a lot of people would have a lot of questions as well.
Before we hop out here and get some other sports, do you have anything you want to add on Bob Stoops' Lincoln Riley comments at the house floor? Me and Ryan were kind of joking around about that a little bit ago. Nothing. The sentiment is nothing different from what he had said before. Out of context, it seemed very random, and I think people kind of ran with it a little bit. But when you watch the full video, it's nothing crazy. I mentioned you have it on your YouTube page, so people can go check that out if they want. But did you have anything you wanted to add there before we get into some other sports?
Yeah, we have it at All Sooners as well. The whole video of him being introduced. It was an awkward moment where he's like, "Do I talk now?" Didn't know if it was his turn to talk or he was going to be introduced with a big long speech. It was funny. It was very, very funny, and he said he felt like a fish out of water. I thought that was cool. But the Lincoln Riley thing, it makes me wonder if he's maybe been feeling a little left out over the past few years. A little like Bob, the work that he did at the beginning and throughout the 18 years that he was here was phenomenal. It was otherworldly, the way he rebuilt this program and kept it there for so long. The reaction from a lot of fans over the past 5 years was, wow, Lincoln Riley is next level. He's taken what Bob Stoops did, and he's taken it to the next level. He's doing playoffs, and he's got Heisman winners and blah, blah, blah. It made me wonder if maybe Bob hasn't got, built up some latent, like, hey, I did this too, kind of feeling about him. Because when it happened, when it came open, it was like, hey, Lincoln didn't invent Oklahoma football. And then he threw this in there. Neither did I. It was, goes all the way back. So I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it, being too cynical or whatever. But I think it was a good little moment, a good little reminder for Bob to remind everybody of his not just his involvement, but his place in the pecking order, his place in the legacy of this football program.
Absolutely. Fun stuff there. And we were joking around the no tie look, respect that. Not going too off brand. Let's keep it casual Bob. Local
He's retired. He doesn't have to wear a tie anymore. He's retired.
Right. Do you think he pushed any rock and roll tequila while he was there? You think he was trying to pass that off?
Not on the Senate floor or the House floor. He did not.
He needs to get
missed opportunity then.
He needs to get one of those contracts to be at the Oklahoma Parks. It sounds like it's pretty lucrative. You can get the Rockwell tequila in there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take another time out here. We'll come back. Other sports, a little bit of basketball news. We'll talk about the latest for the Diamond Sports. Softball responding after that first loss. Baseball, a dominant series in Lawrence. We'll talk about all that next on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey guys, John Hoover for Trade Pros. Listen, they got something special going on at Trade Pros. It's the All-Star Service Agreement. Sign up now for just $25 a month, and the guys at Trade Pros will come out twice a year for routine maintenance. Plus, you get up to 2 pounds of Freon every year at no charge. And get this, if your heating or air unit needs work, it's not going to cost you anything if the repair is less than $500. And if it's more than $500, your cost comes in at just 25% of the Trade Pros price. It's the All-Star Service Program. Some conditions apply, so give the guys at Trade Pros a call, 405-639-9991, or hit them up on the website, tradeprosokc.com.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast, episode 121. Final show of the month of April as we move into May, postseason for the Diamond Sports. And like we said, Coach's Caravan, lots of fun stuff coming up in May, so stick with us, allsooners.com. Certainly the place to be. By the way, we've joked on the last couple shows about how windy it's been, and Damon Lane yesterday said it's the windiest April in Oklahoma City in like 50 years or something. So I feel very validated because we've been saying that for weeks on this show. So wanted to get that in there.
To Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Dillon Gabriel first spring, literally the windiest spring in Oklahoma City in 50 years. Welcome, Dillon. How are you doing? I'm sure he's thrilled about that. But he's getting the hardness out of the way. The season won't be as windy. Like almost like statistically, it just can't be. So it'll be easy in comparison. So that's what he has to look forward to coming up this fall. All right, wrapping up with some other sports. The transfer portal for basketball has been pretty quiet, actually. I think we kind of thought it might come fast and furious, and it hasn't really. They added Joe Bamaseal. We talked about that a couple weeks ago from George Washington. They still have time, obviously, and they're still in on guys, and I still imagine they will add. But it's been pretty quiet as of late. The only news related to Oklahoma in the portal is the fact that Davion Harmon is back in the transfer portal again. So after 1 year at Oregon, he's back in looking for a new spot. I guess this begs the question, and it's the obvious question, do you guys think that Harmon regrets leaving Oklahoma at all? Should he have stuck it out? Or do you just think Oregon just wasn't the right spot for him? It's kind of surprising to see him back in the portal just 1 year later.
So the portal is there for athletes who want to transfer one time. You get an immediate eligibility. If you transfer one time, you get a one-time exemption. If you transfer twice, you don't get that.
You need a waiver.
Immediate eligibility.
You need a waiver. Yeah.
You need to apply for an eligibility waiver. What's the situation? Has he got special circumstances, family circumstance, emergency of some kind? He's got to get back to Texas, whatever it is. That strikes me as odd. You transfer and then a year later you transfer again. It's just, I don't know, weird timing.
Keep in mind though, he's played 3 years college basketball, so it is possible. We've seen the football plan. If you can get a degree in 3 years, once you graduate, you can then transfer. Yeah. So keep in mind that he will have that, and still 2 years of eligibility left. I saw, God, I hate doing this. I forget who threw it out there on Twitter, but Texas Tech is an option that Davion Harmon's looking at. So could return to the Big 12. It's just a case of I didn't follow Oregon basketball this year. I know in Norman he never got the role he thought he was going to have as kind of a leading guy on that team. So I don't know if he had that in Oregon and the supporting cast just wasn't up to his liking. If it want to come back home, a Texas kid, right, coming back to that would make sense if it ends up being Texas Tech. Don't know the circumstances surrounding that, but keep in mind if he did graduate in 3 years, he'll be able to have that immediate eligibility.
Yeah, and that's where, Bamaseal came from George Washington. He has to apply for a waiver, but his coach got fired at GW. So there seems to be optimism that he will get it. We don't know that for a fact, but usually that's a circumstance where you can get it. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, if you transfer twice, you need that waiver. Now Elijah Harkless, to Ryan's point, grad transfer. So he'll be eligible right away at UNLV. So it can get kind of confusing. But yeah, if Harmon could finish school early, then yeah, he'd be eligible on that front. Otherwise, he probably won't be eligible. I don't know why he would get the waiver. Now, we don't know all the circumstances, but yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. Obviously for Davion, very surprising, and wish him the best. He was a guy I really liked to talk to when he was at Oklahoma, very engaging, and always seemed to have a lot of upside. Him and Austin Reeves, kind of that backcourt, just didn't quite shake out, I think, the way he was hoping for it would, and he went for a fresh start and had an okay season. His numbers were down from what they were at Oklahoma, and obviously, Oregon didn't do anything, didn't make the tournament, if I remember correctly. So just didn't quite work out the way he hoped there either. So wish him the best on his third stop. By the way, just real quick before we get into the Diamond Sports, this comes from John Rothstein. Just reported this while we were recording the show. He reported that Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF are planning to join the Big 12 next year, 2023-24. So one more season not in the Big 12 for those teams in their respective sports. So that if that's correct in the way things go, that would obviously mean that unless OU and Texas leave early, we would have a super Big 12 for like a year or two, which would be really weird.
Is this like when Rothstein reported that Tanner Groves was coming back and Elijah Harkless was coming back, when it had already been reported and both players said the same thing? Then it turned out to be not true with Harkless. You know what I'm saying? Is this not the date that we had already known 2023 was the date that they were going to switch over and join the conference? Has that not been out there? Or did I dream?
I don't know. It's like it changes as the wind blows, it seems like. But, I guess at the very least, it's reaffirming April 27, 2022, the Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. He does not include BYU in this statement. Houston, Cincinnati, UCF are all planning to come to the Big 12 next year. So we'll see how that shakes out. Ryan, do you have anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I don't want to go to Orlando. I would like to have Skyline Chili.
I think that's probably that's an interesting development. You would rather when is the Orlando trip? Is it in November? Because I'll take some warm.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Orlando,
or is it in September?
Airport and traffic. Muggy. Yeah, airport and traffic. I'm out.
We could hit Disney, Universal. We can make a weekend out of it.
Harry Potter World presents allsooners.com coverage.
We'll do the pod from the leaky cauldron at Universal. So there you go. So yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Interested in that BYU is not included in that report. Next summer might be an adventure with all this. So we have that to look forward to. Everything is the status quo this year. Next year, who knows what's going to happen? How does Big 12 media days change with these schools? They still split into 2 days. It's so many. It's we're so used to the way things have been. It's like I'm resistant to change. So we'll see what that looks like next summer. All right, getting into Diamond Sports a little bit. Softball has responded as expected from that first loss. Run rules all over the place against Iowa State and their midweek game against North Texas. Ryan, you were at the doubleheader on Friday, so you can speak on just the way the team seems to be approaching this post-loss stretch of the season. Did have a minor bit of news today. They canceled the Thursday game against Kansas City. That was going to be a run rule. So they'll go to Kansas this weekend. But Ryan, you can jump in and start with softball, obviously, since you've been there recently, doing their thing, getting back on track after that loss.
Yeah, lineup looks fine. Jocelyn Allo looks fine. Patty Gasso told us that Tiara Jennings was pretty much just exhausted during that Texas series. I can confirm she was like getting fluids, not going through batting practice, that kind of stuff, especially for that Sunday game. Wow. So that all looks to be back up and running. The thing I'm fascinated in is Patty Gasso from Thursday, game 1 against Texas, to the end of the Iowa State series on spring game Saturday, threw Jordy ball 5 times in 10 days. So I kind of talked to her about that and her thought process on that. Allsooners.com will have that rolling probably Friday morning, kind of as a little preview for this Kansas series, but kind of interested to see how that mindset happens when you've got a staff of pitchers, but you're trying to give Jordy ball that kind of simulating this is what the exhaustion feels like during regional, super regional, World Series play. this is what you have to be able to dig deep and get your best. But this should be, especially with that UMKC game scrapped, easy in and out in Lawrence, pick up your 3-run rules and get some rest, because the Cowgirls, that's shaping up to once again decide the regular season title next weekend in Norman. They've got Florida State this weekend. So that could be a little mini built-in, I don't know if advantage is the right word. OU does have to travel to Lawrence, but if you can play 15 innings of softball against Kansas, you'll be more well-rested than OSU coming in against Florida State.
Yeah, no, they continue to roll. Ryan, I agree with that. I don't know the team, as well as you, obviously, or anything like that, but it does seem like, for watching a team from afar, that Jordy Ball pitches all the time. Like, it seems like she's pitching every game, seemingly. It's how it feels. I know she's not literally, but it's like they have Troutwine and May right there. You'd think that'd be almost a relatively even split between the three of them, but it seems like Patty is really riding Jordy Ball, which I get what you're saying with the getting ready for postseason when you play a lot of games and kind of shorter stretches, but that has been a little surprising to me as well. I've noted that in my brain. It's like, man, she's pitching again? It's like she's she's starting every game. That's how it feels. So interesting to see how that looks once postseason rolls around.
Didn't Patty Ryan talk about that this year with Paige basically running her into the ground a little bit, pitched her too often when they came up short of the national title?
Yeah, I mean, she's talked about that a lot since that Paige Parker. I actually think it was when they beat Auburn that, because they didn't pitch her in game 2 of the Champ Series because I thought her arm was going to fall off. That's an unscientific observation, but they had ridden her. You came in with Ball, Troutwine, Nicole May. Hope Troutwine, is still leading the country in ERA. Her ERA is 0.1. 0.1. That is what Hope Troutwine's doing. And it seems the last couple of series, instead of going Ball, Troutwine, Mays in a 3-game series, it's been Ball, Troutwine, Ball, and Nicole May has kind of been saved for a reliever spot, with the exception of Texas, where she threw May to start and then Troutwine came in and looked fine. Interesting to see how that's shaping up. But like I said, Patty had some interesting thoughts on that. That'll be allseniors.com Friday morning, previewing the KU series as we try to pick through how many of those innings Jordy Ball will have.
Flipping over to baseball to wrap up the show, they absolutely hammered Kansas in Lawrence over the weekend, which is what you have to do. You have to. The Big 12 is too good to leave games on the table when you play the few bottom feeders that are in this conference. Kansas is certainly one of them. And they went into Lawrence and just smacked them around. They scored 46 runs, guys, in 3 games. That's softball numbers. That's not normal in baseball. That's insane. They scored 24 on Sunday. 24. And Blake Robertson is a machine. It is what they had to do. Really good weekend in Lawrence for the Sooners. Now, they did lose last night to Oral Roberts in Tulsa. That's their first midweek loss of the entire year, which is insane. They came up just a few games short of a perfect season on the midweeks. They have just 2 left. So they almost got there. I think the fact that they've been so good in the midweeks buys them a little bit of grace in this area. Was bound to happen. And you play these solid programs, Oral Roberts included in that, constantly on the midweeks where you're not throwing your best pitchers. You're letting some of your guys rest. You're working other guys in. Jimmy Crooks didn't play yesterday. You're eventually going to get beat. It was kind of an anomaly if they hadn't yet. So I think they get a little bit of grace there, but really good weekend in Lawrence. They're projected to make the tournament pretty solidly right now. I mean, they can't just sleepwalk in. They got to continue to play, but they're in position to get back to the tournament as long as they just pretty much just take care of their business, win the games they should, and they'll be back playing in the big dance, which is a big deal. Obviously, we talked about that before the season, Hoove. They need to make the tournament this year, and they're in position to do that, which is obviously a very good thing for that program.
So, Josh, how important is the tournament, the Big 12 tournament down in Arlington for this team this year?
I mean, I guess it remains to be seen on how the next few weeks go. But for seeding purposes, it's going to be very important. If they can make a run in Arlington, and because, I mean, right now, the latest D1 baseball projections have them the number 3 seed in Corvallis, and Oregon State's number 2 in their projections. So you're almost certainly not getting out of that. You never know. It's baseball. But if you can find a way to beef up. If you can have a strong finish to your season and improve your seeding and get to where you're a little closer against a lower seeded team, that would be very, very welcomed. And the Big 12 tournament has been a bugaboo for them the last few years. They haven't had a lot of long stays. So it is going to be an important week, certainly for seeding. And we'll see. It may be, depends on how the next month goes in terms of whether or not they need to have a good week there to make the tournament. Obviously, we'll have to see on that front. But they're in good shape right now.
Is there extra confidence playing the tournament at Globe Life this year, seeing as that's a spot where Oklahoma's had some success all year this season? I know we talked about the big collapse against Texas is a kind of singular thing out at Globe Life, but I wonder if that helps because, anything you can do to get out of the number 2 national seeds region, or, if you get white hot, is there a chance they could climb up to one of those lower number 2 spots in one of these regionals?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still a lot of meat on the bone. And they still have a big series. They still have a series with TCU at TCU in Fort Worth. They have a series with Texas Tech in Lubbock. If you could win one of those series, that would be huge for RPI and resume. So they're in pretty good shape right now to make the tournament. I think the rest of the way is certainly trying to just get yourself a better path once you get there. So, and I do think the fact that they've played 9 games at Globe Life Field is a little bit of an advantage for that team, considering that they'll know the park, they'll be familiar with it. They won't be eyes wide playing in the big major league stadium. They'll have done it already. It'll be business as usual for them. It'll feel like a second home type of thing. So I think that will help. This weekend, Kansas State comes down, which is pretty fun because it's return of Pete Hughes. Pete Hughes is back, former OU coach, and obviously for the casual OU fan, casual OU baseball fan, you're probably looking at that as like, oh, that's kind of cool. Pete Hughes is back. That'll be kind of fun. I can't stress enough to you guys, for the hardcore OU baseball fans out there, this is like Lincoln Riley coming back to Norman. He is public enemy number 1 for OU baseball fans that I interact with regularly. Ryan knows Randy Heights very well, Hoove as well. Pete Hughes is like head on a stick guy for OU baseball fans. And so it's going to be hostile. Like, I'm excited for that. Like, it's going to be cool this weekend. I'm excited. I'll be there this weekend. The return of Pete Hughes. It's going to be fun.
Is it Johnny Baseball on Twitter who's the guy?
Hates him.
His profile picture
is
has been changed.
It's a picture of Pete Hughes with a stop sign through it. Yeah.
Wild.
FPH, Fire Pete Hughes. But yeah, no, it's so it's going to be fun this week. I'm looking forward to that. It's another series that OU needs to win, and would be nice if they swept it, because Kansas State's not especially good either, and you're at home. So taking care of business this weekend, I think, will be important for that team as well. So fun times for the Diamond Sports right now. Both teams, obviously softball, they're a juggernaut, but it looks like baseball is in position to get back to the tournament, which is good. It's fun when both teams are playing, postseason baseball and softball. So we have that coming up here next month. All right, that's it for us. Good show as always. We'll be back with you next week on our regular schedule here on Wednesdays. So thank you so much for listening, and catch all the SI Sooners podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, you can say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, allsooners.com. Click on the player and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. You can also watch the video version over on Hoover's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Helps us out, makes the show bigger and better. And that's it for us on this one. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.